This video is brought to you by John Robson Guitar Tuition. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting the channel by enrolling on a course, purchasing some guitar lessons or a t-shirt, or simply making a donation. Hello chaps, welcome once again to John Robson Guitar Tuition. As always, I do hope you're well. Now then, it's Friday. Which means that it's becoming a bit of a custom of mine where I just sit here and blether away to the camera about whatever happens to be on my mind, which today is the topic of guitar magazines. It struck me recently that I just don't buy them anymore, and I bet that's the same for a lot of you guys as well. You probably used to, like me, buy 2 or 3 magazines a month, and now you just don't. And the easy answer to why this is happening is that, oh, well, yes, because print media is in the decline, because all of that information is up there on the internet and people can access it for free. And I suppose that has got a little bit to do with it, but it's not the whole story. First of all, I'm going to tell you what I used to love about guitar magazines, and then I'm going to tell you why I don't buy them anymore. Guitar magazines gave me an education, essentially. They were my university of the guitar. I learned so much from various publications, like mainly Guitarist magazine. That was a British publication, still is a British publication. I started reading that in the late 80s, but there were others, Guitar Player, Guitar Techniques, various other magazines whose names escape me at the moment. And as I say, I learned lots and lots from them. Not only the kind of technique and, how to play pentatonic scales, what modes are, how harmony works, what arpeggios are, and here's a tab for a solo that I wouldn't mind having a learn of. Great stuff, loads of stuff to get your teeth into there to educate you as a guitarist. But there was also the fact that they were educational about the development of the electric guitar. You learned about the key players in the industry, the key figures in the history of the electric guitar, the big developments, the big breakthroughs in the story of the electric guitar as it evolved. And it was all fascinating stuff. Then there was the fact that these magazines were essentially the gatekeepers to celebrity. There was a talk show on in the UK, which many of you will remember, I'm sure, in the 1970s, called Parkinson. And it was pretty much the only, if not the biggest, guitar talk show, rather, on in the UK at the time. And any big Hollywood icon, we're talking the likes of John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, Bing Crosby, all of the kind of golden age of Hollywood greats. When they came to the UK, they would do the Parkinson show, and that was your one and only chance to kind of get an insight into the personalities of these people. And in much the same way, guitar magazines gave you that insight into your favourite guitarists, because, through, the interviews that these people would do with magazines like that, whether it was, Eric Clapton, Chuck Berry, Joe Walsh, whoever, this was your only opportunity to kind of get a handle on what they were like as people, how they thought, that what sense of humour they had, and so on and so on. And it made you feel more connected to the people whose music you were listening to. So that's what I got from guitar magazines. So why did I stop reading them? Well, as I say, people will say, because all of that information is online. Well, yes, it is. But I stopped reading guitar magazines because they became boring. In the mid-1990s, most of the UK guitar magazine publications were bought out by some big international conglomerate, and they imposed a very, very corporate sort of structure and attitude on all the magazines. And you can actually, kind of spot this as you go back and read back issues of the magazines. Guitarist magazine in particular used to have a brilliant sense of humour going on in there. Back in the days when it used to come with a CD, there used to be little comedy skits on the CD between a pair of characters called Jack and Bobby. Does anybody else remember those guys? And there was humour in the articles, and you could tell that the journalists who were writing for the magazine were having a good time doing so. It was informative, it was educational, but it was also entertaining as well to read these publications. And that all kind of stopped, really. It just became very sort of sterile and dull to read a lot of these magazines. There was also the fact that I noticed that suddenly they weren't reviewing copy guitars anymore. They weren't reviewing any guitar that was a Strat copy, a Les Paul copy, a Telecaster copy. They just stopped doing that, and I don't think they announced it as a policy decision, but it was noticeable that you weren't seeing the Tokai brand in the magazine anymore. You weren't seeing, Harley Benton didn't exist as a brand back then, but you weren't seeing any guitars from companies that were making copy guitars, where once upon a time they used to be given a fair crack of the whip. Unless it was a guitar that was approved by or made by Fender, Gibson, PRS or whoever, it simply didn't get into the pages of the magazine. And those reviews that did get published were unerringly 5-star reviews. Fantastic guitar, can't fault it, absolutely fantastic. 5 stars for value for money on a guitar that costs $2,500 a lot of the time. And you start reading this and you start thinking, really? Is there something going on here? Is there maybe some influence being exerted on the editorial slant of the magazine by the people who are paying for the adverts? Back in the 80s and the early 90s, that wasn't the case. I remember, for instance, reading an absolute stinker of a review of an Ibanez guitar. And in that magazine, there were Ibanez adverts. And the next month, there were still Ibanez adverts, even after the guitar in question had been given a really rough time in the magazine. Deservedly so, because it was apparently an awful guitar, badly set up, didn't sound very good, and wasn't particularly nice to play. You just don't read reviews like that anymore, which makes me, as a consumer, less inclined to trust any of the reviews that I read if they're all kind of unerringly and unswervingly positive and fawning about the products that they are covering. Then we come to the other main reason why I no longer read guitar magazines. As I say, they got boring, and that's my fault as much as anything else, as much as the guitar magazine's fault. As I say, I learned all of this stuff from guitar magazines, but once you've had that education, once you've had that that information and used it and learned it and what have you, do you really need to read it all over again? This is something I started noticing. I would think, okay, they covered this topic recently, didn't they? And I'd go back and, oh, dear me, no, it was 8 years ago when they last covered this topic, whatever it was. It might have been, I don't know, guitar setups or, the history of the Telecaster or whatever. I remember kind of thinking, oh, yeah, time flies, doesn't it? And, maybe when I first read it, it wasn't the first time that they'd covered such a topic, and people back then in the mid-80s were thinking, oh, are they covering this topic again? They covered this recently, didn't they? So there is a cycle to this kind of thing, and you begin to realise that, well, how many times round the merry-go-round do you need to go? And that was one of the reasons why I stepped off. So what could guitar magazines do to win back my custom? Well, I suppose the main thing is certainly for the UK publications like Guitarist and Guitar Techniques and so on, they could bring back the sense of humour. They could bring back the entertainment factor that was a big part of the reason why I used to buy these magazines. I'm not saying I'd be buying them every month, but I might be inclined next time I'm in the supermarket or on the high street and I see one on the newsstand, I might be, I'll pick one up. I could do with something to read at the moment, and that, and if everybody did that and bought a guitar magazine a little bit more often than they're doing now, then it would be, a positive increase in their sales figures, I'm sure. I don't know if they would ever get back to where they were before information was available online, but it would certainly be, it would have a positive impact on their bottom line. So, guitar magazines, if you want us middle-aged fellas to read your publications once again, bring back the sense of humour, bring back Jack and Bobby Guitarist magazine. We miss them. And that's pretty much me having my say for today. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. I don't know whether you've been nodding along with me, saying hear, hear, or whether you've been shouting at the screen telling me I'm an idiot. Either way, please leave a comment below. And before I go, I will just mention once again that I have a charity single out for Christmas. It is in aid of Zoe's Place Baby Hospice, which is a charity in Middlesbrough which provides palliative, respite and end-of-life care to children under 5 with terminal illnesses. So please give generously. Take a listen to the song below. It's a cover of the old Wizard Christmas song, I Wish It Could Be Christmas Every Day. I'd be over the moon if you would buy a copy of it. It's available across all major platforms, as I say, links in the description. Even if you just take a listen to it on Spotify, you're helping the charity. So please be generous and please take a listen. Now, one for me, as you know, I have courses available, and every time someone enrolls on a course, it really does help me. It supports this channel. Details at the end of the video on how to order those. There's a course on making the modes easy, entry-level lead guitar course, beginner's guitar course, slide guitar course, blues guitar course, bit more of an advanced lead guitar course, and there's soon to be a David Gilmour guitar course coming soon, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Every time you enroll on a course, it helps me a lot, so please consider doing so. Or if you'd just like to buy me a pint, because it's Friday after all, there's a link down there where you can do that as well. So I'll just take this opportunity to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, please subscribe, notification bell, give me a like, and I look forward to seeing you all again next time around. Bye for now, folks. Have a great weekend. And don't forget, before you go, to check out my Udemy courses, which you can see are available via my website, which is also where you can contact me to get in touch for some one-to-one tuition, either via Skype or in person if you live local to me. I also have merchandise available on my Teespring store, and of course all of the links are in the description. See you next time, chaps.